Talked a lot about stop and frisk. It was a big issue in the election for mayor. But forgetting about all the hyperbole and all the talk here, there are numbers that came out today from the New York State Attorney General's office that confirmed what a lot of people thought. And really, they were a big, big dagger here when it came to the Big Apple's controversial stop and frisk program in terms of going forward. Eric Schneiderman out with a new study suggesting the program does very little good for all the trouble it causes. And Andrew, again, he backed it up with data.
And it's all in the numbers, Rich. And this is looking at 2009 to 2012. There were 2.4 million stop and frisks in the city. About 6.25% of those led to arrests. Now, for stops that led to jail or prison time of 30 days or more, 0.3% of all stop and frisks. What about leading to a conviction for a violent crime? 0.1% of all stop and frisks led to that. Same number, 0.1% leading to a conviction for weapons possession. Here's another number that shows how ineffective it might be. Stop and frisk arrests that were dismissed or led to non-criminal charges, 24.7%, nearly a quarter of all of the arrests. There's also an uptick in city litigation costs. The New York PD had the largest legal settlements of any city agency in 2009. Rich, that's the first time in 30 years that the NYPD led the way in terms of the city's liability.
May, you've been on both sides of this, prosecutor, now defense attorney here. Talk about when you look at the data and you're trying to figure out if a program's working or not. I'll play devil's advocate. PD, brass is going to say, yeah, but what about the deterrent? Think about all the people that didn't carry guns because they knew that the cops could make them spread them and pat them down here. Think about all the dealers here that aren't walking around with drugs here because they'd have their pockets emptied all the West. Talk about, now that you have data, how you'd answer those two questions.
I answer those two questions. First of all, the best deterrent is simply to have police officers present and visible. And if you just think about if you drive a vehicle, if you're driving, you see a police car, all of a sudden everyone who is right on your bumper and pushing you off the road is driving with some sense. They're slowing down, they're courteous, they're letting you in, they're not running you off the road. That's because they saw the officer, not because the officer stopped and pulled somebody over. The officer's just parked on the side. The other thing is, what do? Look at all the countries where there's not a lot of diversity. Okay, so if you were to go to Ireland, who do you stop and frisk? I mean, how do you police there if you can't pick somebody out based on a difference in color? You don't do it that way. What you do is you investigate, you build trust in the community, number one, and the worst way to do that is by randomly stopping people and humiliating them from the time that they become adolescents, so that every young adult on now has a fearful or resentful relationship with the police. Instead of getting back to community policing, where you know the officer, maybe hire more people from the community, live within that community or the adjoining community, so that it's a little more difficult for you to disregard the people you're policing.
And that return on investment in terms of how many convictions they got, how many convictions were, or how many cases were kicked, those numbers stand out?
Those numbers stand out tremendously because, number one, you're arresting a lot of people who don't need to be arrested. You're now using taxpayer dollars, okay, to go and settle cases that never needed to be brought if you had simply not arrested these people. You have also additional collateral consequences where you get arrested. It impacts your relationships. Every relationship you have, you could lose your job. You may not be able to go to school anymore. There are a host of different things that happen each time a person's arrested.
Dominic, you covered the trial here. You know the principles on both sides. Tell me what you think the reaction of Police Plaza was when Schneiderman put out the report, and forget what they had to say about him. But when you get by that, what was their reaction to the numbers? Do you think they're surprised by him? Do you think it'll change their perception on the program?
There's nothing that's going to change their perception. Their perception, do you want me to be brutally honest here tonight?
I want you to lie to me.
Okay, no, if you want me to be brutally honest, because Counselor addressed Ireland, the NYPD and the NYPDs of America, they don't have an Ireland situation. They have a situation where they view young black men that are criminals that must be stopped. Now that's the bottom line. And I mean, arguing the other side. That's the pink elephant in the room.
They always say they go where the crime is, though.
But translation: young black men. And to back that up, they say, well, look at the alarming rate that they're killing each other. And there is some merit in those numbers. I'm not going to lie. And our civil rights leaders, some of them are phonies. with the amount of black men that are killing black men, and no one is doing anything about it. But with that said, it's not right if my son, your son, and it's happened to my son who has epilepsy. What happened if he's in the middle of a seizure and the cop doesn't understand what's going on and he thinks that my son is being defiant? What happens then?
Well, Dominic, let's just look at it this way also, though, okay? When you stop and frisk, you and I are likely to get stopped and frisked, too, if we change our attire, we're walking down in jeans.
Yes.
Now, I don't want to get stopped and frisked every day I go to New York City simply because I'm an African-American man. But also, throw all of that out. It's ineffective. If you look at the young man who went to the Paramus Mall, he's not going to get stopped and frisked. He's the one who walks right into the mall and holds that mall hostage for the entire day. And it's just by the grace of God that he didn't shoot and kill as many people as he wanted to, because apparently those 200 police cars were not finding him. Okay, he had free reign there. The guy who walked into Sandy Hook. If you look at the people who bombed the Boston Marathon, Timothy McVeigh, none of those people would be stopped by stop and frisk. And all of the people who have been stopped are not doing these things, so it's not effective.
I'm curious, you know him personally, and then also from your time in dealing as much as you did with law enforcement. Bratton comes in. When he goes, brings in chiefs, goes to the precinct commanders and says, all right, you know what? New boss here, he's getting rid of the program. Do you think rank and file says, thank God, you know, now I don't have to deal with this anymore, or, oh my gosh, how am I going to do my job? It's gotten that much harder. What do you think rank and file, almost 40,000 cops?
Excellent question, and here's why. When I sat in Judge Scheinland's courtroom, what was obvious was that the powers that be, somebody was going to go after her. It was clear. What we're seeing now, what's happening to her reputation, because she was so honest in observing the numbers that the city just couldn't take it. She was exposing things that are simply not supposed to be exposed in a federal courtroom. But
you have a new boss now, both in Gracie Mansion and a new boss at Police Prosecution. What do you think rank and file takes away from the new policy?
But the reason why I said your question was excellent, it's broken windows and broke whatever they call it. Bratton, that's what really started Stop and Frisk. Under Giuliani. Because what happens is you bring the commander in and you say, okay, your boys are eating too many donuts. We want to see the arrests.
Quotas.
And to get those arrests, you've got to make the stops. And to make the stops, you've got to have fertile movement and all those other things you've been talking about. So broken windows really is what got us in. Bratton is really what got us in this position.
But Bratton does work for somebody. He does work for de Blasio. Now, how this plays out, we don't know. But de Blasio based the whole campaign to at least get through the primary on, unlike everybody in the field, I don't have shades of gray on this one. This is wrong. I get elected. It goes away. We'll see how it plays out.
Rank and file is going to call it something else. It's not going to stop. They're going to call it something else. He moved. He jumped. He ran. I saw a bulge in his jacket. They'll call it something else.
I'm already heavy, so real quickly, Mayo, if you went to the PDs in Westchester County and said, you guys, I'll put it to a vote, secret ballot, you guys want stop and frisk powers, or you think it's going to cause you more headaches than it's worth, how do you think they would vote?
I think most of the people feel that stop and frisk is imposed on them. I was on a panel with a first-year law student at Pace Law, and he's an officer, and he told us that they're required. They have a quota. You have to have at least 7 arrests. He hates it. He doesn't want to have to do that.
He called it something different, but everybody's got the same kind of policy.
Absolutely.
All right, everybody. When we come back here, we will switch gears. This played out yet again on the athletic fields. In this case, the hard courts of the NBA last night after a shoving match. Some of the words from a locker room. We've seen this play out in the NFL. We've seen this play out in every major political sport here, as well as in the entertainment field, and as well know beyond that. The N-word, and where we go from here on that. Stay with us.